when the old Holloway farmhouse burned to ground on a fog-soaked morning in rural Montana. Everyone thought it was just another tragic accident. But when Sheriff Daniel Rourke arrived, he found something the fire couldn't destroy. AK-9 named Axel, sitting in the ashes, refusing to leave. The dog wouldn't eat, wouldn't move, and when the rescuers tried to pull him away, he fought like his life depended on it. Then, as they sifted through the ruins, Daniel saw something glint beneath the char, a clue that tied the fire to a secret buried in his own past. The smell hit first, that sour, metallic tang that clings to everything after a house fire. Even with the morning fog drifting low over the valley, the air here felt scorched. Sheriff Daniel Rourke stepped out of his cruiser and pulled the collar of his coat higher, eyes squinting through the haze rising from what used to be the Holloway residence. The place was barely standing. Charred beams jutted out of the ground like the ribs of some enormous carcass. The porch had collapsed inward, and smoke still twitched from blackened holes where windows used to be. And in front of it, sitting perfectly still among the ash and ruin, was a German shepherd. The dog didn't move when Daniel approached. Its fur was streaked gray from soot, paws pressed into the wet ground. The animal's eyes tracked the sheriff with an unsettling steadiness, not aggression, but something rawer. Loss, maybe, or guilt. "Hey there, boy," Daniel murmured, crouching low. His boots sank into the mud. "You with the family?" The shepherd tilted its head, tail twitching once. A faint whine slipped from its throat, almost like a plea. Around its neck hung a melted collar, tags blackened but still faintly legible. Axel. Deputy Rhonda Pike called from behind him, voice muffled through her mask. "Fire chief says it started sometime after midnight. Neighbor saw smoke around one, called it in too late." Daniel stood, brushing ash from his knees. "Anyone inside?" Rhonda hesitated. "They're still digging." He turned back toward Axel, who hadn't moved an inch. "Whose dog?" "Holloway family's," she said quietly. "They said he wouldn't let anyone near the porch when the firefighters arrived. Had to tranquilize him just to get through." Daniel frowned. "But he's awake now." "Yeah," she said. "He came back on his own before sunrise. Sat there since. Won't budge." For a long moment, the sheriff said nothing. The faint crackle of smoldering timber was the only sound. Then, from deeper inside the ruin, came a voice, hoarse, urgent. "Sheriff, you might want to see this." The coroner and two firefighters were standing near the remnants of what had been the kitchen. Their faces were pale, eyes flicking toward the dog as Daniel approached. The air grew heavier the closer he got, that unbearable mix of smoke, melted plastic, and something much worse. "We found 3 bodies so far," said Chief Brendan, his gloved hand trembling as he pointed toward a partially collapsed section of floor. "But there's something off about the placement. Look for yourself." Daniel leaned in. The bodies, a man, a woman, and what looked like a child, were curled together near what used to be a back hallway. Their positions didn't make sense. The fire had burned hottest here, but their hands were intertwined. The child was cradled in the woman's arms. The man's arm stretched toward the kitchen counter, and lying just beside that arm, untouched by fire, was a half-melted keychain shaped like a sheriff's badge. Daniel froze. "That looks like—" Rhonda started. He cut her off. "Yeah, my department's old design. We only issued those 10 years back." He crouched lower, squinting. The badge charm was attached to a ring of smaller trinkets, a baseball glove, a church cross, and a small brass letter, A. His stomach tightened. "Chief," Daniel said, "you sure this was a Holloway place?" Brendan nodded slowly. "Why?" "Because that keychain belonged to my wife." Silence stretched out, broken only by the dog's distant whimper. Daniel stood, suddenly unsteady. His wife, Ellen Rourke, had been missing for nearly 3 years. Vanished on a rainy evening after leaving her volunteer shift at the church food drive. The case had gone cold. Everyone had assumed she'd been taken, maybe killed, but she'd never been found. And now, here, in the ashes of another family's home, lay something that shouldn't exist. Rhonda swallowed hard. "Could be coincidence," she said softly. Daniel's jaw tightened. "It's not." He stepped back outside, chest heaving. The fog was thinning, the morning sun clawing its way through the smoke. Axel, the dog, had finally risen to his feet. He was pacing now, circling the debris with low, restless sounds. Daniel walked toward him, holding out the keychain. "You know something, don't you?" he whispered. "What were you guarding, boy?" Axel stopped pacing. Then, without warning, he sprinted toward the collapsed porch, barking fiercely. "Whoa, Axel!" Daniel ran after him. The dog clawed at the boards, digging through layers of ash and soot with desperate force. Every bark echoed like it was coming from somewhere deeper, not just fear, but urgency, a need to show something. "Chief, over here," Daniel shouted. Firefighters hurried over with shovels, clearing debris beside the dog. The air filled with dust and embers. Something metallic clinked beneath the rubble. "Careful," Brendan yelled. "Could be a propane tank." But it wasn't. As they brushed aside the charred planks, a small iron hatch appeared. A trapdoor, scorched but intact. Axel pawed at it, whining so hard his voice cracked. Rhonda crouched beside it, squinting. Did this place have a basement? "Not on any blueprints," Daniel said. "Holloway built this place himself. Maybe he added one." The chief tugged at the handle. It didn't move. Locked from below. "Get a crowbar," Daniel ordered. It took 5 minutes to pry it open. When they did, a wave of cold air burst upward, thick, damp, and wrong. The space below was narrow and steep, like a root cellar. A light flickered weakly somewhere inside. Daniel descended first, flashlight in hand, gun holstered but ready. The steps creaked under his boots. Axel followed, whining softly but refusing to stay behind. At the bottom was a small, concrete room. Shelves lined the walls, canned food, tools, blankets. And in the center of the room, an old cot with a blood-stained sheet. But that wasn't what froze him. On the far wall hung a corkboard filled with photographs, hundreds of them, overlapping, edges burnt. All of people, some faces circled, others crossed out. And near the center, a single picture of Ellen Rourke, his wife, pinned with a rusted nail, his throat closed. Rhonda's voice trembled behind him. "Sheriff, what is this?" Daniel didn't answer. He was staring at something scrawled in black, painted across the concrete above the board. "The fire cleanses." Outside, the dog began barking again, sharp, frantic. Daniel rushed up the steps, heart pounding. Axel was standing near the edge of the yard now, facing the woods beyond the property line. His ears were up, body rigid, eyes fixed on something unseen between the trees. "See something, boy?" Daniel asked quietly, drawing his flashlight. The beam cut across the tree line. Empty trunks, fog curling low. Then movement. A silhouette, just barely visible through the mist. Too tall to be a child. Too still to be an animal. Watching them. Daniel's hand went to his holster. "This is Sheriff Rourke," he shouted. "Step out now." The figure didn't move. Axel growled low, fur bristling. Then the shape turned and vanished deeper into the woods. Silent, quick, deliberate. "Rhonda, get back up." Daniel yelled. "Someone's still out here." The deputies fanned out, flashlights cutting to the fog, radios crackling. But within minutes, the trail went cold. No footprints. No broken branches. Nothing but the faint echo of the dog's bark fading into the trees. By mid-afternoon, the fire trucks had gone, leaving only yellow tape and the sound of crows overhead. Daniel sat on the tailgate of his cruiser, Axel resting beside him, head on his boots. Chief Brennan approached quietly. "We'll get the bodies to the coroner," he said. "You sure you're okay to stay on this, Dan?" Daniel didn't look up. "I have to. Whoever burned this house, they wanted something buried." Brendan hesitated. "You think that something was your wife?" Daniel turned toward the ruins. The smoke had thinned, revealing the skeleton of the house, black against the pale sky. "I don't know," he said softly, "but I think that dog just found the first piece of the truth." He reached down, brushing soot from Axel's fur. The shepherd lifted his head and licked his hand once, a gesture of loyalty, maybe recognition. "Good boy," Daniel whispered. As the last embers cooled behind them, a wind swept down the valley, carried with the faint scent of burnt wood, and something else, something older, a promise buried in ash. By the time the sun dipped behind the pines, the town of Mill Creek had already started whispering. Fires like that didn't happen often. Not out here, not to the Halloways. Folks gathered in the diner, voices low, eyes flicking toward the road where Sheriff Rourke's cruiser had parked since dawn. Inside the station, the smell of smoke still clung to Daniel's clothes. He hadn't gone home. Axel lay near his desk, eyes half shut, ears twitching at every sound. The dog had refused a kennel, refused food too. He'd only stay close to Daniel, as if bound by something deeper than training. On the sheriff's desk, the keychain sat sealed in a plastic evidence bag. The brass, a charm caught the flicker of the desk lamp. Rhonda Pike leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "You've been staring at that thing for hours," she said quietly. Daniel didn't look up. 3 years, he murmured. 3 years she's been gone, and now this just shows up in a burnt house that doesn't belong to her. "You're sure it's Ellen's?" "I gave it to her for our anniversary." His voice cracked slightly. "You don't forget something like that." Rhonda stepped closer, tone softening. "Dan, there's a lot of ways something like that could have ended up there. You know how evidence works. We'll run the prints, maybe get something." He sighed, rubbing his temple. "Yeah, maybe." But deep down he knew. Some part of him had recognized at the instant he saw it. The scratches on the metal, the small dent near the ring. From the day Ellen had dropped it on their porch steps. Too specific to mistake. He rose from his chair. "What do we have on the Halloways?" Rhonda handed him a thin file. "Thomas Halloway, 48. Contractor. Wife, Marie. Daughter, Ava, 11. No criminal record. No debts. House insured, but not excessively. Neighbors said they kept to themselves. Any connections to my wife?" "None that we found." Daniel frowned. "Someone planted that keychain, Rhonda. Someone wanted me to find it." "Why?" He looked toward the window, where Axel's reflection stared back at him, calm and unblinking. "Because they're not done yet." The following morning, Daniel drove to the edge of town. Mist rolled over the valley again, settling low among the fields. The Halloway property was taped off, but the fire crews had cleared most of the debris overnight. The shell of the house was nothing more than a black scar on the land. Axel jumped from the truck before Daniel even opened the door, trotting toward the ruins with his nose to the ground. He moved with purpose, sniffing, circling, pausing. Daniel followed slowly. "What is it, boy?" The shepherd stopped near the edge of what had been the porch and started digging again, softer this time, deliberate. Within seconds, his paw struck metal. Daniel knelt, brushing ash aside with his gloves. He uncovered a small tin box, edges scorched but intact. The latch gave easily under his thumb. Inside lay 3 things: a folded note, a small flash drive, and a child's charm bracelet. Pink beads, half melted. Daniel's chest tightened. He unfolded the note carefully. The fire wasn't supposed to take her. The fire was supposed to hide her. He stared at the words for a long time. No signature. No handwriting he recognized. Just that sentence. Simple, terrifying. Back at the station, the flash drive flickered to life on the office computer. It contained 6 video files, all time-stamped over the past 3 years. Each showed the same basement room from the Halloway property, the same room Daniel had found under the trapdoor. In the first clip, a woman sat on a cot, face shadowed. She was thin, trembling, wearing a gray sweater. Her voice was barely audible. "If anyone finds this, please, tell my daughter I didn't leave her." He said I had to stay. Said it was the only way to keep them safe. Daniel froze. He didn't need better lighting to know that voice. It was Ellen. He gripped the desk so tightly his knuckles whitened. His pulse thundered in his ears. Rhonda, standing beside him, whispered, "Jesus Christ." The second video was worse. Ellen's eyes darted toward the camera, fear in every motion. "He makes me watch the tapes. Says the fire will fix it all. Says I was chosen to cleanse what I broke." The screen glitched, lines of static cutting her words in half. Rhonda reached for the mouse, but Daniel stopped her. "No," he said hoarsely. "Let it play." The fourth video showed the basement darker, ash scattered on the floor, faint sounds of fire crackling above. Ellen's voice trembled. He's burning it. He said once it's done, he'll come for the others. He said the sheriff deserves to see it burn too. The file ended abruptly. Rhonda turned toward Daniel. Who's he? He didn't answer. His gaze was fixed on the pause frame, Ellen's eyes staring straight into the lens, wet with fear and something else. Regret. He swallowed hard. We need to know who built that basement. Every permit, every inspection, every subcontractor Halloway used. That afternoon, Daniel visited the county archives. The clerk, an old man with nicotine-stained fingers, shuffled through the faded paperwork. Here we go, he said, sliding a dusty folder across the counter. Halloway filed a private build permit in 2017. Did most of the construction himself. Hired one outside contractor for the foundation, a man named Miles Garrison. Daniel's stomach turned. The name felt like a bruise. Miles had been his deputy once, his closest friend, before he'd abruptly quit 3 years ago, just after Ellen disappeared. Address? Daniel asked. Still lives out past Bitter Creek, far side of the ridge. Daniel folded the file under his arm and headed for the door. Axel followed close, tail low, eyes alert. The road to Bitter Creek wound through miles of pine and frostbitten pasture. When Daniel finally reached the small cabin at the end of the dirt track, it looked half abandoned, porch sagging, windows covered in grime. Smoke curled weakly from the chimney. He killed the engine, stepped out, and rested his hand on the holster. "Stay," he murmured to Axel. The dog sat, watching him with sharp, silent focus. Daniel knocked twice. No answer. He tried the knob, unlocked. Inside smelled of whiskey and mildew. Papers covered the table. On the wall above the fireplace hung a single photograph. Daniel and Miles in uniform, arms over each other's shoulders, smiling. The edges were burned. "Hello," Daniel called. "Miles!" A voice came from the back room. "Didn't think you'd ever come." Miles stepped into the doorway, face unshaven, eyes hollow. His badge, old and tarnished, hung from a nail around his neck. He stared at Daniel for a long, uncomfortable moment before speaking again. "You found the house." Daniel's pulse spiked. "You built it." Miles nodded slowly. "Not all of it. Just a part he paid me for." "Who paid you?" "The same man who took her." Daniel's throat went dry. "Ellen." Miles's jaw twitched. "You were supposed to leave it alone, Dan. That fire was the end. He made sure of it." "Who?" But Miles didn't answer. He stepped closer, eyes darting toward the window. "If he knows you're digging again, he'll come for you too. For both of us." "Miles, look at me. Who the hell are you talking about?" A sound cut through the air outside, sharp, mechanical. The window shattered. Miles jerked backward, collapsing to floor, blood blooming across his chest. "Sniper." Daniel dug the ground, pulling his gun. Axel barked furiously, darting toward the door. Another shot shattered the lamp. Glass sprayed across the floor. Daniel crawled to Miles, pressing a hand to the wound. "Stay with me." Miles coughed, blood spilling from his lips. "It's not over," he gasped. "The fire's just the start." Then his eyes went still. Daniel froze, every muscle locked. The wind outside carried the faint echo of footsteps fading into the trees. Whoever fired that shot was gone. Axel whined softly beside him, pawing at Miles's lifeless arm. Daniel exhaled, shaking. His hands trembled as he reached into Miles's jacket, finding a folded scrap of paper. Scrawled in messy black ink were 5 words. "The next one is yours." That night, back at the station, Daniel sat alone in the dark. The flash drive still glowed faintly on the desk, the note from the ashes beside it. Axel rested by his feet, silent but watchful. Outside, thunder rolled over the valley, low, distant. Somewhere out there, in the black woods beyond Mill Creek, someone was setting the next match. Daniel reached down, resting a hand on Axel's head. "We're not letting it burn again," he whispered. Axel lifted his head, eyes glinting in the dim light, as if he understood. The rain started just before midnight. steady and cold, hammering against the tin roof of the Mill Creek Sheriff Station. Sheriff Daniel Rourke sat alone in his office, the room lit only by the dull glow of a desk lamp. The note Miles Garrison had left, "The next one is yours," lay open before him, curling at the corners from damp fingers. Axel slept nearby, his breathing shallow, twitching occasionally like he was dreaming. Every now and then, the dog let out a low growl, as if sensing something neither man nor light could see. Daniel stared at the map pinned to the wall. Red markers dotted various properties across Mill Creek Valley, places connected, however faintly, to the fire. But one mark, dead center, was different. His own house. The meaning was clear. Whoever had started this, whoever had taken Ellen, burned the Halloways, and killed Miles, wanted to finish what began 3 years ago, and they wanted Daniel to watch it happen. He leaned back, the chair creaking softly, memories stirring like ghosts. The night Ellen vanished. The anonymous call claiming she'd been seen at the old church. The empty basement, the smell of fuel. Then, weeks later, the letter. "You failed to save her once. Don't fail again." He thought it was a cruel hoax. But now, the phone on his desk rang, slicing through the silence. He hesitated before answering. Rourke. A distorted voice came through, low, calm, familiar. "You should have stayed away from the ashes, Sheriff." Daniel stiffened. "Who is this? You think you can douse what's already burning? The fire doesn't end until it takes everything." The line clicked dead. Axel's head shot up, ears perked, growling toward the window. Daniel followed his gaze. Nothing but darkness beyond the rain-streaked glass. He stood, holstering his sidearm. "Come on, boy. We're going home." The drive through Mill Creek's back roads felt endless. The rain came harder, slashing across the windshield. Every turn of the wipers revealed brief flashes of the forest. Black trunks, broken fences, pale light flickering between trees like dying fireflies. By the time he reached the property, the power was out. The house sat in total darkness, its outline barely visible through the storm. Axel leapt out first, nose to the wind, tail rigid. Daniel followed, flashlight cutting through the rain. The mud squelched under his boots. Then he saw it, a faint orange glow leaking from beneath the porch door. "Stay close," he whispered. He pushed the door open. The smell hit him instantly. Gasoline. The living room was littered with candles, dozens of them, arranged in a circle around the old oak coffee table. On the table lay a stack of photographs, each showing Ellen, smiling, laughing, alive. Every picture had a small black cross drawn over her face, and at the center of the table, a single flickering lighter. Daniel's stomach turned. "No!" He stepped forward, sweeping the light across the walls. Scrawled in black, stood above the mantel were 4 words. "The fire cleans the faithless." Axel growled, low and sharp, his gaze fixed on the hallway, leading toward the basement. Daniel raised his gun, heart pounding. "Who's down there?" No answer, just a soft, rhythmic creak of stair. He moved toward the sound, Axel close at his heel. The basement door stood ajar, faint light spilling through the crack. The smell of smoke thickened. He descended slowly, each step groaning beneath his weight. The basement was colder than it should have been. The walls were lined with old boxes, most of them untouched. But in the far corner stood a tall figure, face hidden beneath a hood, holding a lantern. Daniel's gun was steady. His voice wasn't. "Turn around." The figure didn't move. "I said turn around." The person finally turned, and Daniel's breath caught. It was Marie Halloway. Her face was half-burned, skin taut and pale, eyes wild. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered. "Marie, you died in that fire." She smiled faintly. "He saved me. Said I had to finish what he started." "Who's he?" But she didn't answer. She stepped back, revealing something behind her, a wooden crate half open, filled with old fuel cans and burned photographs. Daniel took a cautious step forward. "Marie, listen to me. It's over. Whatever he told you, it ends here." She shook her head slowly. "You don't understand. He's already here." A sound creaked from above, the floorboards bending. Axel barked furiously, spinning toward the stairs. Daniel looked up. Shadows move in the light of flames upstairs. Deliberate, heavy. "Stay!" he ordered the dog and rushed up the stairs, weapon ready. But as he reached the main floor, the fire was already spreading. The candles had toppled, licking at the drapes and wooden beams. The heat grew fast, crawling up the walls. Through the smoke, a figure moved near the window, tall, wearing a fire-resistant jacket, face hidden beneath a mask. Daniel fired once, missed. The masked figure swung a metal rod, striking him across the shoulder. Pain shot down his arm. He stumbled, catching himself on the burning table. The man's voice came muffled through the mask. "You should have let her burn, Sheriff." Daniel's vision blurred. "Who are you?" The man stepped closer, the firelight catching the side of his mask. Engraved initials. MG, Miles Garrison. But that was impossible. Daniel had watched him die, held his bloodied hand as he went still. The man saw confusion and laughed. A hollow, terrible sound. "You buried the wrong one. You think you ever knew who I was?" He tore off the mask. It wasn't Miles. It was Thomas Holloway, his face raw from burns, eyes bright with fanatic calm. "The fire didn't take me," he said. "It freed me." He lunged. Daniel ducked, shoving him into the table. The lighter fell, fuel spilling everywhere. Flames roared to life, swallowing the room. Axel barked from the basement doorway, trapped behind the smoke. Daniel and Holloway fought through the heat, fists, elbows, choking air. The sheriff slammed Holloway against the wall, but the man laughed even as blood streamed down his mouth. "You can't save them, Rourke. You never could." He reached for a match, striking it with trembling fingers. Daniel fired. The shot echoed, thunderous, final. Holloway fell backward into the flames, the match still burning in his hand. The fire swallowed him whole. Daniel staggered toward the basement door, coughing, vision darkening. "Axel!" he shouted. The dog barked once, a desperate, sharp sound. He followed it, forcing his way through the smoke. The ceiling cracked above him. Fire rained down. He reached Axel just as part of the staircase collapsed. The shepherd's fur was singed, eyes frantic. Daniel lifted him, shielding the dog with his coat, and pushed toward the front door. Outside, the rain came harder, hissing against the flames. He fell to his knees in the mud, clutching Axel, coughing smoke until his throat burned raw. Behind them, the house collapsing on itself, a hiss, a groan, and then silence. Hours later, the rain had washed most of the ash away. Paramedics worked under floodlights, covering the smoldering remains. Daniel sat wrapped in a blanket near the ambulance. Axel lay beside him, muzzle resting on his knee. Rhonda approached quietly. "You're lucky to be alive." He nodded weakly. "Holloway's not." She hesitated. "We found something in what's left of the basement. A metal box, hidden under the floorboards." He looked up. What was inside? She handed him a small, half-melted photograph. It showed a young woman holding a child, Ellen, smiling down at a baby Daniel had never seen before. On the back, in Ellen's handwriting, "She's safe. Don't look for us." Daniel stared at it for a long time, tears mixing with the rain. Rhonda's voice was soft. "You think she's still alive?" He looked toward the horizon, where dawn was breaking through the fog. "If she is, she didn't want to find her." Axel nudged his hand, whimpering softly. Daniel smiled faintly, running his fingers through the dog's fur. "Guess it's just us now, huh, boy?" The shepherd rested his head on Daniel's lap, eyes closing as the first rays of sun broke over the blackened ruin. Weeks later, the town moved on. The ashes were cleared, the story half forgotten, just another tragedy whispered about over coffee. But every night, Daniel drove out to the ridge, parking near the ruins, watching the valley flicker under the stars. Axel sat beside him, silent, loyal. And sometimes, when the wind shifted, Daniel swore he could still smell smoke, faint, distant, and hear Ellen's voice carried with it. The fire cleanses, but it never forgets. He would sit there until dawn, the dog at his side, both of them waiting for a peace that never came.